This episode is rated M for mature audiences. The views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect those of the PFC Entertainment Network or any of the affiliates that make this show possible.
This is the Pure Fury Creations Entertainment Network.
Where's the beat?
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
I pity the fool.
And we welcome you to What the 80s here on the PFC Entertainment Network. Along with Jill Bain, I'm Jason Klaus. We certainly appreciate you tuning in here this week. We have a pretty loaded episode in terms of looking back on some of the coolest things that have ever happened in the 1980s, especially as I was telling Jill before we came on the air here, the This Day in History itself, as this show drops on May the 21st. May the 21st has historically been a pretty big day for nostalgic purposes, for pop culture, for sports. We're going to be doing probably a little bit longer than usual look on this day in history, but we're not going to take away from the main event, as it were. But before we get there, Jill, good to see you this week. As always, how's things in your neck of the woods, as it were?
Not too shabby. Speaking of this day in history, on this day in history, not in the 80s, but in 2013, my middle grandson, Jackson, was born. So he is turning 12 the day this drops.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and wish him a very happy birthday and hope the day is absolutely awesome. So that's fun.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Oh. Well, the day we're recording, it's my youngest grandchild's birthday. She is 10 today, because they're all 2 years apart. So we got 10, 12, and in July we'll have 14. The July one that's turning 14, that's the one that's probably going to hit me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Time flies, man.
Oh, so fast. And you know what? When I was younger in the 80s, and I'd be like, oh, I want to be 13 so I can do this. Or I want to be this so I can do this. My mom would say, slow down, because when you get older, once you have kids, it goes by. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I should have listened.
Should have listened.
Should have listened.
Every single human being, when they were growing up,
Yep.
it's like, God, I wish I was older so I could do this, that, or the other thing. And then we get there, and it's like, number one, wow, this is what I was waiting for. Like, it's just so underwhelming. I don't know what we were expecting. Like, we just expected once we achieved a particular age or milestone, we're like all these magical doors of opportunity were going to open up for us or be waiting for us.
Yeah.
That's not reality, as we find out. Some people flourish, other ones don't. You know? And it's like, oh shit, I actually have to work for shit.
Yeah. Oh, that's the shitty part. Like you said, you waited for a certain age. Like, my brothers got to do so much at 13, but then I had that whole double standard. I was a girl. And well, the boys can take care of themselves. And so like I grew up with that whole double standard thing, and I fucking hated it. So I would see them doing stuff at an age. I would get to that age expecting to be able to do it, and I couldn't because they would, because they were boys. So yeah, that sucked for me. But
Understandably, I can understand why that would be a burr in the saddle, as it were.
yeah,
Obviously, I can't. Even after all this time, as you talk about it, you can hear that in your voice, just how frustrating that must have been. So I can appreciate that.
yeah.
So let this be a PSA for younger viewers or fans of the show, and if you're below the age of 16 and you're listening to us, like I have other questions going on, like where are your parents?
I would say if there's a 16-year-old listening to this show, their parents raised them right.
That's fair.
Because then that means they love the 80s. Which, you know what? Had a conversation, not last night, the night before, with my husband. We were talking about music. And he reminded me how he hates hair bands.
Really?
Yes. Hates
That's
them.
interesting.
Yeah.
Hates them.
Hates them.
So what does he listen to? Or what did he listen to back then?
I would think more like the stadium rock. Like now he won't listen to Journey, but I know he did like back then. And he grew up like with the older country, so he listened to that. And when we started dating, he wasn't a fan of country. Now he listens to it because he kind of don't have a choice, because I listen to that as well as like my playlist. Any of my playlists, except for the 80s one, is like someone just had a fucking seizure and just hit add to random songs that popped up. Like I've got Eminem, I've got George Strait, Johnny Cash. I've got just so much different shit. But if he listens to his playlist, it's all like Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, Bush, like the grunge shit. Which I like too. That's also on my playlist. But yeah, he like sticks to one little corner. Maybe might have an offshoot of this or an offshoot of that, but doesn't stray too far from his main.
Well, listen, you go with what you like, you know. At least it's consistent, I understand that. I appreciate that. My playlists, I do have some that are just random as fuck. Mm-hmm. But like I have a Dave Matthews Band playlist. I have Hank Jr. I have AC/DC. Like my favorite, artists have their own playlist, because I can't just. Some of them are filtered into the other ones, but. You go much like what you're saying. It may start off with, AC/DC or Marilyn Manson or something like that, but you're going to get Eminem. You're going to get the Beatles. You're going to get Buffalo Springfield. You know what I mean? I'm going to be all over the place.
Yeah, it gets crazy. But yeah, I actually, when he said that, I'm like, you can't say that to me, that you don't like hair bands. And then I thought divorce, and I was kidding, of course, but that's a very serious thing for me.
That's why I was so, when you said that, I was like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, well, we didn't bond over music.
Clearly. He just puts his other strengths in a brighter spotlight, and I can appreciate that wholeheartedly. Absolutely. Look, you got to have the yin to the yang.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't be 100%. agreement on everything. There's got, one has to balance the other. At least, that's what I find.
Yeah.
So.
And and I was naming bands. I'm like, like this one, but the one that really hurt me was that he doesn't like Cinderella. That one hurt.
Really?
That hurt.
It's funny you mentioned Cinderella for a couple of reasons. One, we worked Saturday, our Friday night going into Saturday, and I needed to shake it up a little bit. And I just went to Spotify and hit random on hair bands, as a matter of fact. And a Cinderella song came on, and I was like, oh, man, I forgot how good this song was, to the point to where I got off of Spotify, went to Apple Music, pulled up Cinderella, and played like the greatest hits.
Yeah.
And I was like, so it's ironic that you mentioned them, because I was like, man, this is of the 80s hair bands, like they're ones that I will go back to on a pretty regular basis to listen to if I'm going to listen to that genre of music. Because now, I listen to more podcasts and stuff than I do music. You know? But man, when I'm in that mood, they're one of my go-tos.
Yep, love them.
Well, it's ironic also that you mentioned them, because they may or may not be featured in this week's edition of what the 80s. I lived on this day, May the 21st, and a lot of shit went down on this day. Things that, whether you are a fan of or not, you understand the significance of it because of its impact that it's had on world history, pop culture, things that to this day here in 2025, when you say these things or these titles or what have you, it's immediate. You already know what it is. For example, on this day in 1980, Empire Strikes Back was released in theaters. Okay. The sequel to Star Wars. And this really started to solidify this franchise as a franchise. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, and I know we've talked about this. I am not a Star Wars guy. I am not a Star Trek guy. Science fiction is just not something that I've been dialed into unless it's Spaceballs. I wish I could say that's a joke, but I'm not fucking around. Like, that's legit. But I understand why this is such an important thing in pop culture. Movies, merchandising, toys. Now that we have like Disney Plus, which now owns the rights to Star Wars, like you get all these little sub stories and sub series and all this other stuff. Like, I get it, it's just not for me.
I'm right there with you.
We're okay. Yeah, I do remember, for whatever reason, I remember this being advertised, and I was 4 years old, and I have no reason why I should I should remember this, but I think it's the lightsabers that. I think that's the only thing that I'm like, well, what is that about? Then I realized what it was about,
and then you were like, "Bug it."
I checked out. Like, okay, well, cool. But that's not to say that I'm shitting on Star Wars. I'm not. I understand it.
Right.
I appreciate it. It's just not my thing.
Yep.
All right. Let's look at some birthdays here that on this day of those individuals who were pretty relevant, I should say, in the 1980s. Baseball's Bobby Cox was born on this day, wound up being a very successful manager for a number of teams. Singer Ronald Isley of the Isley Brothers also did a duet with Rod Stewart on a remake of This Old Heart of Mine in 1989.
Yes.
That just, that was off the top of my head, Jill. That's
very
not
good.
Right here. Oh. I'm sorry. Actor and turned politician Al Franken, who gained prominence on Saturday Night Live, primarily as a writer, but then he turned his attention to politics. Somebody that I know you want to talk about icons of the 1980s, Mr. T. It is his birthday today. And if you don't know who Mr. T is, I don't know.
We don't have the crayons to explain it to you.
No. Actor Judge Reinhold, best known as Billy Rosewood in the Beverly Hills Cop movies.
Or Brad from Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's been in a lot of other shows too, but when I hear Judge Reinhold, it's either Beverly Hills Cop or the Santa Claus.
Yes.
He played the the kind of the snarky stepdad. And baseball player Kent Herbeck. Did you know that Mr. T is the youngest of 12 children?
Oh, I did not. His poor mother.
Don't get him started on his mother. The motherfucker is still cutting a promo about his mom that he started 3 years ago, just nonstop. And, oh, bless his heart. All right. I don't know if I'm not going to mention that. I don't give that son of a bitch any more attention than history has allotted. Unfortunate passings that have happened on this day. Sammy Davis Sr., which I don't know a whole lot about. I know Junior.
Yeah.
But you don't really hear a whole lot about Sammy Davis, the senior. Born in 1900. God bless America.
Oh, Lord.
And passed away on this day in 1988. So, he lived a long life.
Yeah.
Stephen Elliott, the author, passed away in 2005. It says he played the chief in Beverly Hills Cop in 1984, the older gentleman.
Okay.
TV movies 1980s movies that were released on this day. We already mentioned The Empire Strikes Back in 1980. 81, we had Death Hunt with Charles Bronson, Lee Marvin, Carl Weathers. Apollo Creed, for those who were out of the loop. 1982, Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. Also in 82, Fighting Back with Tom Skerritt. Don't know that one.
I think. It sounds familiar.
84, huh?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, yeah, I know I haven't watched it. I can tell you that. In 84, the animation movie BC Rock was released, and in 86, Crawl Space. Again, I've not seen these.
No.
On television, 1987, The Days and Nights of Molly Dodd premiere on Lifetime. Ran for 5 seasons, a total of 65 episodes. I remember hearing about this show, but I never watched it.
Never seen it.
And Steve Martin hosted the season 14 finale of Saturday Night Live, and the musical guest on that particular evening, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Albums released on this day. Hot Space by Queen in 1982. It was their 10th album. Joe Walsh released The Confessor in 1985. Also in 85 was Glow by Rick James. In 1987, we got Sandbox by Guided by Voices. And in 1988, Long Cold Winter, Cinderella.
Love it.
Singles released on this day in 1984, God Bless the USA by Lee Greenwood, still played.
Yep, every 4th of July. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Sports-wise, the only thing I'm really going to make mention, the New York Islanders beat the Minnesota North Stars 4-1 to win their second straight Stanley Cup, which it would be in the midst of them winning 4 in a row. So just making mention of that. Here we go. The number 1 songs of the 1980s. This day, every year in the 1980s. 1980, Call Me by Blondie. 1981, Betty Davis Eyes by Kim Carnes. 1982. Now, if you recall, there was a significant stretch here by Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. Ebony and Ivory by Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder took over. 1983, Let's Dance by David Bowie.
I was just listening to that song. I love that song.
Did you? Were you?
Yeah.
1984, Hello by Lionel Richie. Is it me you're looking for? Oh, fuck. I watched this movie the other day at work. 1985, Don't You Forget About Me by Simple Minds. And
The
if
Breakfast
you don't know
Club.
what that is, you're done here. You might as well check out.
Yep, go home.
86, The Greatest Love of All by Whitney Houston. 87, With or Without You by U2. 1988, Anything for You by Gloria Estefan and the Miami Sound Machine.
That's also on my playlist.
I have a lot of Gloria sprinkled throughout. Mm-hmm. Big fan. As I am of Paula Abdul. In 1989, Forever Your Girl was the number 1 song. The title track of her big breakout album there. Mm-hmm. So that was this day in the 1980s.
Nice. That was a busy day.
Yeah. It's weird how, when you go back and you look at it, clearly this has everything to do with what or how that day fell during the week. Mm-hmm. Obviously, and traditionally, movie premieres only happened on Friday.
Yeah.
And when you get a group of big blockbusters, and I feel like as we get into June and July and August, the big summer blockbuster season, especially later in the 80s, you're going to see a lot of real prominent names pop up all at one time, one weekend, because I can remember one specific weekend in 1989, June of 1989, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, No Holds Barred. I know people will laugh, but that was the number 2 movie that week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how popular Hulk Hogan was at that time. And I was one of them. I'm not ashamed to tell you that. Batman.
Oh, that was
something else was released, and it's like, holy hell, one of the biggest weekends in 80s history. So I'm looking forward to getting into the summer season, and you're going to start seeing a lot of cool shit like that. Music too, but music, I guess, was more directed towards Tuesdays. I wonder why that was. Back in the day, it was always Tuesday.
Maybe it was to give them their own day and not be tied in necessarily with movies, but so it had their own day.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And I want to say books. I don't know about how it was back then, but books have a specific day that they get released too. Let me see if I can. Nope, the calculator's not going to tell me that. Yeah, I think books is also on Tuesdays. At least that's what it is now.
Okay. I'll be straight up with you. I have never bought a book on its day of release. Never. I probably, that's not, I'm not trying to shit on books because, I have quite a few of them here. The ones that I've either gotten after the fact or I've gotten as gifts or I had like a subscription and they were mailed to me.
Right.
I got totes of a couple of totes of nice hardbound books about baseball, about different aspects of baseball, like the greatest stadiums or the oldest things of this nature.
Yeah.
But they were all mailed to me, so I've never bought a book on its opening day, and I've never bought any kind of tickets on its opening day.
Okay.
I just never dealt with that hysteria.
You know what? I will say recently, last month, as a matter of fact, I have an Audible subscription. And a while back, I had found this author, really, really liked her, and read a book. Well, then she had announced she was doing a sequel to that book. And I was excited. So it just so happened the day I got my monthly credit was the same day the book dropped. Was that a coincidence? I do not know. But that is one I use my credit for immediately.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay. I think other things that we're going to appreciate here this week are. I found this list last night, Jill. I sent it over to you. I'm like, I think this is what we're going to talk about here this week. Now, we're not going to go through every single one of these because we would be here for hours, I feel like. I scrolled very quickly and I picked up on random ones. So we're going to pick and choose what we're going to look at here, but it's very random 80s kids things that no young Gen Xer or old millennial will ever forget, even if they tried.
Right.
Stupid long title. So, by the time you see this pop up, I will condense that into something under 50 characters. Like, holy hell, what are we doing? But these are the kind of lists that I like looking for because they find not just the same top 10 movies, top 10 albums, top 10 TV shows, things of this nature. Yeah. They go above and beyond to look at what life in the 80s was like and how we grew up. And this gives, like our kids, grandkids, an opportunity to see what our day-to-day looked like or different aspects that we looked forward to. And it's kind of a time capsule when you compare it to all the advances from then till now and what they have at their disposal. It's mind-blowing in some cases. Now, again, these are different aspects of things that we looked forward to, things that were a part of our childhood, part of our day-to-day, that we will never forget. The anticipation of finally getting to your computer time day and thinking, this will be the time that I beat the Oregon Trail. This game threw kids into fits.
Yeah.
Oh. Were you a fan of the Oregon Trail?
I can remember playing it one time. We didn't, in my elementary school, we did not get a lot of computer time. And not everybody got computer time. So it was basically, if you had a turn, you pretty much had to wait for it to go through the whole school before it ever came back to you. Well, by that time, I was already in the higher grades of school, so it fucking never got back to me.
Isn't it crazy just the accessibility of computers back then till now? Nowadays, every kid's got a Chromebook or some bullshit that that they're tied to during the duration of their school year. At least, my kids do. And you think about like what you were saying, the roving, desktop, and they had to go through all the classes, and all, you had just a handful of them for the whole school.
Yep.
And then once you got into high school, it was like a class. You had a classroom with 10 or 12 of them in there. Mm-hmm. And nowadays it's in the palm of your hands. These goddamn things are a computer,
Yeah.
It's fucking nuts.
Mm-hmm.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, not being able to get enough of the scent of a scratch-and-sniff sticker, and being worried if you scratched too much, the scent would fade away sooner. 100%.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
I really love the picture that they incorporated with this, because these were your classic scratch-and-sniffs.
Oh, yeah.
The apple and like chocolate. Like I looked at that. I'm like, Jesus, that is straight from elementary school.
Yeah. Yeah. I even like the ones that smelled like tires.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know why I like that one.
Yeah. For those who don't know, they were not all fruity and pleasant smelling.
No, there was a skunk.
Yeah. I don't want to say trash, but for the lack of a better term, that's what I'll use. It smelled like shit. I don't know how else, and we've talked about this. That's how you knew where you were in the pecking order with your teacher.
Yep.
Because her favorites
100%.
The best ones, and the ones that she didn't care for got the skunk or the moss or, whatever the case was. Oh, God damn, that was terrible. All right. Having to decide after school whether you wanted to get a Pink Panther bar for the bubblegum eyes. Man. And then it cut it off. Oh, or a sugary but refreshing Mickey's Parade popsicle. God damn. I forgot about the Mickey's one until I saw this.
Okay, I'm trying to find the rest of it. Okay.
Oh, it's underneath. It's like number 4. 3 and 4 are, because it screwed me up. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I don't think I ever had the Mickey's ones.
No?
Mm-mm.
Oh, man. Yeah, we did. They're a glorified popsicle in a Mickey Mouse shape or Donald Duck shape. That's the mold that they put them in.
Now, I remember the Mickey's head as an ice cream bar. I remember that.
That's what this Pink Panther one was, but it was bubblegum flavored ice cream with the bubblegum eyes. And like nowadays the kids have like SpongeBob is like that, and a couple, few other characters that still have those frozen bubblegum eyeballs that broke your fucking teeth if you didn't let it melt a little bit in your mouth before you chomp down on it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Wanting a My Buddy or a Kid Sister doll. That you were beyond this when these things became popular.
Yeah.
But
But,
you remember the commercial, right?
Yeah, my buddy. My buddy and me, we like to climb up a tree.
Oh,
Yep, I remember.
Oh, yeah.
I don't
Kudos.
think the Kid Sister was that big. I don't think that one was as popular as the My Buddy doll.
No, it was that company's attempt to reel in the female consumer, for the lack of a better term. But man, how are you going to compete when you've got Cabbage Patch dolls, when you've got Barbies, when you've got all these other iconic, dolls and action figures and things like this? You don't know unless you try, but it just wasn't there for them.
Right.
The next thing on this list, knowing better than to touch your shrinky dinks for a let me get through this whole sentence. Okay, don't cut it off there. Okay, don't use this as clickbait. Don't be a dick, is what I'm saying. Knowing better than to touch your shrinky dinks for a long time, while after taking them out of the oven because they took forever to cool down. Shrinky dinks were this art craft that what you colored them in, and then you threw them in the oven, and they became like this hard little, I don't want to say ornament, but something along these lines.
Yeah.
But if you pulled them out, you had to let them cool down, and if you didn't let them cool down, like they legitimately they will burn your fingerprints clear off your fingers. Like, it was hot. These things were super popular for
they
a
were.
long time. And like every character you could think of was made into shrinky dinks.
Yep. I had Barbie ones.
Did you?
Yep.
I had WWF ones.
Shocked.
I know, right? Weird.
Yeah. Not a good fit.
Oh. Now, along those lines, at number 7 here, realizing that 75% of the fun was playing with color forms was sniffing them. This is how we got high back in the day.
Our introduction.
Realize it.
Our introduction to huffing, I guess.
Yeah, it was like, wow. Then you're over it. I mean, just like that. I mean, straight up, that's exactly what happened. All of us, as if you're Tony Montana, you know what I mean? Color forms, though, man. See, it's the little shit like that I missed.
Yeah.
Color forms, the shrinky dinks, things like that. Like, loving your popple, but always having an absolute struggle to get it back into its ball shape. I never had a problem with, popples, if you don't know what popples were. Jill, you don't know what a popple is?
I have no fucking clue what a popple is.
Well, allow me to elaborate.
Please do, because I have no fucking clue.
So, you see the picture of that thing, okay? That is what a popple looks like. These things rolled up into themselves and became a ball that you could throw. I mean, you didn't really want to take it outside and use it as a basketball or baseball or anything like that because you'd fuck it up. But this was their gimmick. They transformed from this stuffed animal into a ball, and that was the gimmick. You unfold it, it's there. You fold it back up, it's not.
All right.
I had one, and it was badass.
I don't know. Maybe this one I'm clueless. I've never heard of it.
I'll be damned.
I will too, because that looks like it would have been a great time.
It was cool. It was cool. You know, if you were, for a stuffed animal, I think my brother and I both got one for like an Easter gift or something like that,
Okay, well, I feel gypped.
Well,
It's fine.
maybe we'll reintroduce. Maybe go on eBay and I don't know. No, that eBay's funny like that.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. The absolute joy you got watching the Muppet Babies, even if it was a rerun. I can relate. I really appreciated the Muppet Babies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that is. Speaking of Muppet Babies, always wondering what the hell Nanny looked like. You never saw what Nanny looked like. You
Never.
knew the voice.
Yep.
The voice was Barbara Billingsley,
Yep.
who was June Cleaver on Leave It to Beaver. But all you saw was her witch socks legs.
Yep.
That's all you know about Nanny. Okay. Well, moving on in our look back on things that we will never forget in our 80s day-to-day. Ooh, there's your title. Trying to recite along as fast as the Micro Machine Man during the Micro Machine commercials. And if you couldn't, just settling for the shouting out loud of the ending. Remember, if it doesn't say Micro Machines, it's not the real thing. Do you remember Micro Machines?
I do. And for something that was geared towards boys, I thought they were cool. But I'm also that person, I like anything miniature. Like anything that's smaller than it's supposed to be. I don't know why. It's a weird obsession I have. It's fucking weird.
Yeah, I can understand.
It's weird.
Look, everybody's got their thing, I can appreciate it. Just like I can with this next little thing here. Browsing your local mom and pop video store and usually having to settle for renting something else because they only carried a copy or two of the one you wanted to watch.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Listen. One of my low-key dreams when I was younger was I wanted to open up a video store because I really enjoyed that whole thing. And we had a shit ton. We had a pretty impressive VHS library at home. And I'm like, I reorganized them. I did all kinds of shit. And I'm like, I'm going to open up a video store one day. I'm going to be the rival to Blockbuster. Little did I know. Little did anybody know.
Right.
What would wind up being, streaming and online and all this other shit. But I can remember going to the Hadley Video and renting movies, and we would have to reserve once we knew that a particular copy was coming out or a movie was coming out. We had to get on a waiting list, and when that person in front of you brought it back, they would call you and say, you have 3 hours to come pick this movie up, or we're going to offer it to the next person on the list. I was like, holy shit.
I don't want that. Let's get in the car and go. Yeah, I remember when we first got our VCR, there was like 2 places. And I live in Saginaw, which is not a little one-light town or anything. And when we first got it, there was like 2 places that you could go and rent. And one was a Curtis Mathis store. Right, there's a fucking blast.
Wow. Right? I haven't heard that name in a hot minute.
Yeah, and then at the time we had one Family Video, which started out as just like this tiny little store, and then they had to move locations because it just became a thing where now everyone had VCRs and were every weekend renting movies. And yeah, and then you had like the new releases you could only rent for overnight, and then you had the
Yep.
older ones where you could have for like 2 or 3 days, and then like the old ones you could keep them bitches for a week because no one wanted them.
Hmm. Yeah. I really miss the video store concept. And, I get, we're in a day and age where it's got to be more convenient, it's got to be faster, it's got to be immediate. We got to have that satisfaction right here and now. But, even there was just something about the whole concept of loading up in like it was a family thing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Let's go pick out our weekend's worth of entertainment.
Yep.
Especially on weekends where rainy and you really couldn't do anything outside. God damn, like that was something that really took us out of that negative mindset. Oh, it's dark and gloomy and rainy, can't do anything, blah blah blah. So yeah, it's unless you were part of it, you really can't really get a grasp as to how important that was to a kid. Then if you were lucky enough and you were within proximity of like a Blockbuster, well, my God, that was the biggest thing. The mom and pop shop was cool. But man, Blockbuster with the banners, and they've got more than 2 copies, and anything you could possibly want.
Yeah.
Holy hell, what a time! And then some of their video stores, you would try to get a little peek behind the barn doors there in the back corner where they kept their adult section.
Yes.
All right. Moving along here, I'm going to skip through a couple of these because this next one, I read this and it really made me chuckle. Having your family own a copy of the Flashdance soundtrack, whether you whether you saw the movie or not, or Thriller, which everyone you knew ordered a copy of.
Yeah.
I can remember vividly these being played back to back during the weekends when my mom would clean house. And they were on vinyl albums, so she would have to stop, flip the album over, put the needle on, and then go back to her next 25 minutes worth of chores, and then it was swapping the albums. Yep. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, it took me right back to that.
Yep. And it's funny seeing the Thriller one because earlier I was scrolling through Facebook and it was different pictures of him in the pose for the Thriller album, but it was other names he could have went with, and it was Spiller, and he had like a wine stain on his shirt, Chiller, where he's laying in ice, and Griller, and he had a little hibachi grill next to him. Like it's funny.
Going to several birthday parties where they served a character cake that was 85% frosting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how many Big Bird cakes I saw like this. There was somebody, it wasn't Grover, but there was a blue character.
Cookie Monster.
Thank you. I don't know why I didn't think of that.
I one year got a Cookie Monster cake.
Cookie Monster. Need that cookie.
And I'm not going to lie, I'm not a big fan of frosting unless it's like the whipped frosting. I'm not a frosting person.
I don't know. I'm pretty plain, man. Like I'm good good with shit that I can buy at the grocery store. I don't mean the pre-made cakes at the bakery. Like that frosting is dog shit. I don't know what happens. It's just not for me. I would much rather just like bake a Duncan Hines cake and just that's just perfectly fine with me.
Yeah.
Now there are some some folks who they make their stuff homemade and it is just a little slice of heaven. Very rare though. Not few. All right, moving on here. Every once in a while, being grossed out by one of your Garbage Pail Kid cards.
I love Garbage Pail Kids.
I knew you would. I knew you were going to say that.
I loved Garbage Pail Kids. Love them. Never saw the movie though. I will confess that. I never saw the movie.
I didn't either. I wasn't allowed to buy the cards when they first came out. But my best friend that lived in the metropolis of downtown Hadley, like he had them all. So when I went over there, if he had any doubles, he gave them to me.
Okay.
So I had those for the longest time, probably up until the mid 90s, and wound up losing them in one of the moves. But I had original Garbage Pail Kids from back in the 80s because I don't know, they were so stupid. They made me laugh more than anything. But every once in a while, there would be one to be like, all right, that's a little much. You know what I mean?
And like I liked, looking at it and everything, but it was always like the background details that were so, like, whoever made them always paid such attention to detail. And that's what made them, like, because you can just have the person, like Trash Bag Trina or whatever, and just the person, but it was the stuff in the background that was like, oh, that's why she's Trash Bag Trina.
Well, not a lot of people paid attention in the background. It was the character, and that was it.
Yeah.
What was coming out of their nose, ass, mouth, or head. Where are you at on movies like The Dark Crystal and The Never Ending Story? Were you a fan? Me neither. Let's move on.
No.
Having these McDonald glasses. Yes.
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 Yep.
Yes. I miss glasses like this. This particular set, I mean, I just showed it on the screen here. These were so awesome. And what were they, like $2.99 a piece back in the day? But you had to have all six. Ronald McDonald, the cheeseburger guy, the hamburger guy, Grimace. Just these, when we had company over, this is when we broke these out. This was the fine china.
Right. And I want to say we had the Hamburglar and we had Grimace, and that was all. Maybe Ronald McDonald, but I don't remember.
Okay. Here's my sidebar to this, and this was a great example. How many times over the course of your childhood were you invested in a franchise or a cast of characters, but there was always one that was the unofficial, or in some cases, the official leader of the group or the face of the group?
Mm-hmm.
When merchandise came out like this, a collector series of shit, you get every other supporting character except the main guy. Yeah. This happened with He-Man. This happened with Lion-O of the Thundercats. This happened with Ronald McDonald a lot of times. This happened with Hulk Hogan. For the wrestling merchandise, you can get Iron Sheik, and you can get Grimace, and you can get this guy and that guy. You could never get the main characters. I was more pissed, and I had it pegged from very early on. I'm like, they don't want us to have the main character to complete the set until later on, and then they're going to release them all. So we keep buying the Happy Meals in hopes that we're going to get that elusive character.
Yep.
Meanwhile, I've got 5 Hamburglers. You know what I mean? Fuck, Jill.
Yeah.
I had this shit pegged from single digit age. I'm like, they just don't have them out yet. That's what's happening. But,
Yep. Or it was almost like they made 20,000 Grimaces and 30 Ronald McDonald's.
yeah. Yep, they knew what the fuck they were doing.
They knew.
Oh, and Burger King's Return of the Jedi glasses. I do remember these as well. Return of the Jedi was a pretty popular sequel, and coming out in '83, McDonald's was really starting to come into its own and started really getting, and Burger King. There was the Burger Wars. They were making a mad dash to get everything they could get their hands on licensing wise, so that they could market toys and gimmicks for their kids' meals. Burger King latching on to the Star Wars, people, like, that was huge.
Yeah.
Huge. I'm not going to talk about that. Oh, we talked last week about the waterbeds.
Yeah.
Wanting a waterbed because they were the coolest thing ever. Also, they were the funnest things to jump on. Never been a thing. Okay. Knowing that any good battery-operated toy required at least half a dozen C or D batteries. That is still a thing.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, man. Seeing cigarette ads everywhere and not thinking twice about it.
No.
The example here they have is Camel, with the Joe Camel cartoon
Camel was
character.
everywhere. And you
Yes.
could collect Camel Cash and send that in and get free shit.
Marlboro Miles.
Yep, Marlboro Miles, and there was Camel Cash. Those, I think, were the two. And, well, my mom smoked Raleigh cigarettes, which was part of the Raleigh and Bel Air. The Bel Air were the lights, and the Raleighs were the full flavor. And they had, like, little coupons, like when you took the cellophane out that were in there. And then I can remember my mom collecting those, and she'd put them in stacks of like 50 or 100, and then she would send them in and get like household shit. It didn't have logo on it, like a logo. It was almost like shopping in like a Finger Hut catalog, but you just used these things, and that was way before Marlboro Miles or Camel Cash.
Yeah. Wow.
Because I remember that being my job when I was in preschool in the 70s.
It's crazy to think, because as you were saying all that, I'm sitting here thinking of all the places that I saw cigarette ads, and the Camel logo, the Marlboro logo. These are the two more popular brands at that time. You can look at old pictures of Tiger Stadium, and on top of the stadium is a huge Marlboro logo sign, like it was part of the stadium. And you're like, all the magazine ads with the Marlboro Man, with the setting in the Wild West and all this other shit. And it's like, we didn't think twice about it. It
was normal to us.
It is. That's what they're advertising. Okay, I got it. This ad fucked me up. At least it didn't take me all the way to the top, just halfway. Okay. This bitch. Okay, here we go. Along those lines, unsupervised cigarette machines everywhere, and nobody thinking twice about it.
Yeah.
Put in money, pull the plunger, and down drops your pack of Winstons.
I'm not gonna lie, those were my best friend as a teenager.
Yeah,
Yep.
a lot of teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't. They, walk right up. Nobody give a fuck. It's on you. The huge, the confusion over there being two cartoons called Ghostbusters, and they just did not make any sense in your mind. To the point to where the Ghostbusters that had the characters associated to the movie had to be repackaged as the real Ghostbusters. And the second one didn't last very long at all. Like, why would you do that?
I don't know.
What?
Maybe playing on the name. I'm not gonna lie, I'm looking at the picture. I've never seen or heard of the other ones.
No, I remember them coming out, and I was like, wait a minute, what is this other one? This is not Ghostbusters with Spangler and Venkman and all Slimer. Like that wasn't it. I don't know how they got away with it, because that property, I just watched a documentary on Netflix about the making of Ghostbusters and the hurdle that they had to go to get rights to the name. They were going to be called the Ghost Breakers because Ghostbusters was owned by another entertainment entity. So for this cartoon to come out, like, how did you get away with that?
Right.
It has nothing to do with what we know as the Ghostbusters. And then the follow-up here was knowing the real Ghostbusters was the superior one because it was the one based on the movie. I just said the same thing. However, the characters don't look like the characters in the movie. That's the part that pissed me off. If they had their actual voices or they looked more like Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray and Harold Ramis, Winston, or Ernie Hudson, I would have been more invested in it than I was. I looked at it for a couple of times and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Especially when the voice of Garfield is the voice of Venkman. I think that mind fucked me. Oh. Being inspired to draw just by looking at the cover of a Mead sketch pad. If you recall, for those who are watching, it is simply a sketch of a hand holding a pencil. And if that person can do that, why the fuck can't I?
Right.
Oh.
Well, and I look at it this way. I do not have any artistic talent, but I'll tell you who does. It's Birthday Boy Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
That kid has talent for... this tattoo right here, the eye, he drew that.
Oh, wow.
He drew that. And actually, my husband sent me a picture the other day. If you don't mind, I'm just going to pop that up for a second because the kid has talent. And I don't know what he eventually wants to do with this talent, but I'm going to tell you, he's not, and mind you, he's not even 12 yet. And I got this sent to me while I was at work the other day, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Oh, wow. Damn.
Yeah. Like, the talent this boy has is phenomenal.
Is he the one that did the Creepy Soup logo?
Yes. Yes.
Thought so.
And I'll have to send you the picture he drew of Stevie Nicks.
Oh, yeah, please do.
Yeah, because that is...
I do appreciate seeing people's artistic talents.
Yeah.
Because that shit is individualized as your fingerprints. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, his talent is unmatched.
Okay. The next thing on this list is being irrationally scared when playing outside that you might fall down a well like baby Jessica. Listen, the baby Jessica thing riveted the nation.
Absolutely.
For a handful of days, man. Like, that's all you heard about. This little girl fell into a well.
Yeah.
And man, they had my attention. I was scared. Like, this was one of the first times that 24-hour news really started to gain some steam. Specifically CNN. That was really the one that got the ball rolling on that. But this was one of the first major news stories that people were that invested in they could not get enough information. Now, a child falling into a well and the relief efforts, there's only X amount of information you can get at one time, up until they start making some sort of progress. But man, oh man, when they finally pulled her out and she was alive and all that, like, whew, we looked at it as a huge relief. Like, we were able to take a breath, like, oh, thank God this child's okay. And then you look back, it's this one kid that had all of the attention of the nation on her. And then, of course, you start getting into, well, why was the well unattended? And then you start doing a little bit of digging, a little bit of background, a little bit of research, and you're like, oh, well, this whole thing could have been avoided, But
right.
Baby Jessica. Now, to put it in context, as a sidebar, if something like that was to happen now, we probably wouldn't hear about it. You would hear about it in pockets of the country, specifically, where it's taking place at. But I don't know, with as much access as we have to the news, politics, things of this nature across multiple forms of media, social media, online, televised, this, that, and the other thing. Does a kid falling in a well make that big of an impact nowadays? I don't know if it would. We might hear about it if somebody shares it on Facebook, but if not, it's not going to certainly gain the attention it did back in '87.
Maybe if it was a celebrity's kid.
Well, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Watching Gremlins and thinking you were going to watch a cute movie about a rabbit chinchilla creature and not a frightening horror movie about monsters that terrorize a small town during Christmas.
I mean, that's a fair assumption of that movie.
Oh, man. Having a collection of Disney read-along storybook and cassette books that you'd sometimes play just for the songs they included in them. Fuck the book. I'm just going to listen to the tapes. Did you do this?
Yes. I had a lot. I even had the Gremlins. But mine were all on record because I'm old. I had my own little record player. I had I'm looking at this. I had the Bambi one. I had Gremlins. I had Cinderella. And they all included the songs. And yes, I sometimes listened just for the music.
I'll say this about Disney. The musicians they bring in for their projects are second to none. And they don't have to be an Elton John. They don't have to be, some mainstream megastar.
Right.
Just some of the most iconic and catchy tunes are done by people we have never heard of before. But we will spend the next 2 decades plus singing their fucking songs.
Yep.
That's a testament. Stand by. Ads kick me back up to the top of the list here.
Well, mine usually just kicks me out and back to our message. Like it just did. Motherfucker.
Yeah, we'll do a couple more of these. Every kid owned these rainbow flip-flops. They were super painful since the nylon on the straps would rub against your toes. This is what they look like.
I never had a pair.
Oh my God, just about every kid in Hadley had those.
I remember them. I remember them well because a lot of kids had them. When I was younger, did not like flip-flops because I didn't like nothing in between my toes. Now I only wear flip-flops in the summer because they give me cute tan lines.
Oh. Every kid owned a pair of Fisher-Price roller skates that were actually impossible to skate in. I didn't have these.
I had a pair because I loved roller skating, and I was too young for an actual pair of roller skates, so my mom said, well, I'll get you. And I also had, like, the fucking metal ones that I couldn't take to a roller rink.
Mm-hmm.
Those you could actually skate outside in, which was great. But those Fisher-Price ones can kiss my ass because you could not skate on them, and good luck getting them to fit. They were terrible. Terrible. Terrible.
So is it safe to say you weren't a fan?
I was not a fan.
Okay. All right. That you either owned or knew someone who owned a Cabbage Patch doll whose name was immediately changed after they adopted it.
I don't know if many people changed it. I know the one I had, she had dark brown hair, or like the brown yarn for hair, and her name was Jill. So, I didn't change her name.
The one I had was named Waylon, and I thought it was badass because of Waylon Jennings.
Right?
So I kept it.
Yeah.
Either you own a Cabbage Patch or you knew somebody who owned a Rainbow Bright doll that ended up covered in crayon marks and with the yarn hair all undone.
No.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't know anybody that played with Rainbow Bright.
Me neither.
I knew about it,
Yeah.
but I didn't know anybody who had it.
No.
Collecting shiny Sandy Lion stickers that you'd get from a craft store or stationery shop. Not really.
No, not really.
Getting that little magical feeling whenever you watch the Disney Sunday night movie intro.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
100%.
Didn't always like the movie that was played, but that was amazing. Yeah.
How gross the stickers you had to lick tasted in sticker fun books. Also, when they dried all wrinkly and never stuck right in the book.
You know what? I'm going to have to look that one up because I don't remember that.
Oh, I do.
Ones that you licked?
Yeah. Yep. And in fact, the one they have here on display, My Pet Monster, I had this book. Yep.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
How these Coca-Cola cups left a waxy taste in your Coke. At least in your mind it did.
Yeah, fair.
Oh my God. These were the designs of the default disposable cups that everyone's family used at picnics and barbecues. It is your orange and yellow flowers or weeds or whatever the fuck these things are.
Yeah.
Getting hungry every time you watched a Time for Timer PSA. Or whenever you played the pizza party game. I never played that.
Me neither.
Playing with those sliding puzzles and eventually getting frustrated with it, just pulling out all the pieces and putting them back together correctly.
I fucking hate those things.
Oh, man. Oh. The Snoopy snow cone machine. God damn. The absolute disappointment you felt anytime you made shaved ice with the Snoopy snow cone maker and only ended up with a slushy mess. Because they certainly didn't turn out the way that it looked in the picture.
No, I do remember my brothers having that, and it makes me chuckle because it was about a week ago. There is a team leader on Trim 3 who kind of has the same sense of humor, and I sent him a picture of one of those. Forgive me. And it had like blood splatter on it, and he's like, and it said, "This is a horrible glory hole."
Oh, my goodness. Whew, all right. Knowing the only solution for getting your Nintendo cartridge to work was to blow in it?
Yep.
I mean, who did? Who didn't do that?
Right. I don't know a single person who didn't. Even when you were told it doesn't really do anything. Yes, it did.
Right.
Fuck off, because yes, it did.
A couple more here. And knowing that if you went to the store with your parents, they'd 9 times out of 10 give you a quarter to get a prize from the Lucky Eggs machine.
Yes. I remember that, and I remember the loud ass clucking that damn chicken did. It was embarrassing. I just want a little surprise. I don't need all the pomp and circumstance. Give me the fucking toy.
Oh, and finally, being completely traumatized by that episode of Punky Brewster where Charlie almost died after being locked in the abandoned fridge. You didn't watch Punky Brewster, did you?
I shockingly didn't. You would think that would have been right up my alley, but I did not watch Punky Brewster.
Oh my goodness. Well, that was fun to go back and look at some of that. Yeah, for sure. Hopefully that brief interruption during the recording isn't going to be a thing. I guess we'll find out how it turns out. But worst case is we throw an ad in the middle and no one's the wiser. So all of this banter, they have no idea what the fuck we're talking about.
Yeah, they'll be clueless.
They'll be all right. Well, Jill, this was fun. Anything else you want to throw out there before we put a bow on this week's episode?
No, I don't think I have anything.
All right. Well, we certainly appreciate everybody tuning in here this week. If you dig what we're doing, share us, tell your friends, tell your family. You can check out the online store. over at pfcstore.printify.me or pfcsummer.printify.me. That is going to be your official summer-inspired merchandise for all the great shows here across our network. And as a sidebar, Jill, because you have a bunch of them, I dabbled in screen printing, and I didn't get out of it. I just haven't been in a situation or a position to do any screen printing projects in the last few years or so. Well, when you know it, I have one. So now it's time to get out my screen printing bullshit. We have something of a reunion coming up here in August for the alumni of my wrestling company. So I'm going to utilize that as my inspiration to make a new screen printing project, which, knowing me, is going to inspire me to do other projects. So just be prepared. There's going to be new shirts on the way at some point.
It's funny because I had to change my shirt because the outfit I had put on originally, I felt pretty good in, and my son comes down and he's looking at me really funny. He went in the bathroom and he came out and he was like, I know who you look like. And I'm like, what? He was like, the mom from Bob's Burgers. Because I had on like a red long sleeve shirt and some jean leggings. And Judy comes out of the room and my son says, look at mom. And she's looking at me. She was like, yeah. And then he showed her the picture. And they both just sat there and fucking laughed for like 5 minutes straight. So much to the point where my son has a picture now of Linda Belcher as my picture with Linda. Yeah, assholes. I gave birth to assholes.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's cute. That's pretty funny.
And I almost grabbed one of your shirts to put on.
Okay. Yeah, I've done a few in my day, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm a couple years back because look, if you know me, you know I have a shirt problem. Bad. And so a couple years ago, I was doing themed weeks. And this is back when we were working 6 days. So I would do, 1 week I did Gary Allen shirts. 1 week I did shirts of podcasts I listened to. And then I had one where I did a Jason week, where every shirt I wore that week was one of yours.
That's so awesome. That's pretty awesome. Really appreciate that. Yeah. And, I hear things like that, and it makes it all worthwhile. I really do appreciate that. So, and you can collect your own collection of PFC shirts to have your own themed weeks by heading over to pfcstore.printify.me. With that, go out this week, be awesome to yourselves and to each other, and we'll see you next week on What the 80s here on the PFC Entertainment Network.